Welcome to another episode of Get Real. I'm Tom Lemons. Here with Commissioner Steve Champion today. He's going to talk about a couple of different issues that affected the county. He is one of the most outspoken conservatives in the county, although they're all Republicans on the Board of County Commissioners. But Steve is definitely, he speaks his mind when it comes to certain issues. Steve, go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, again, thanks for having me here today, Tom and Jay. I don't know why everybody's so scared to talk to you, Tom, but listen, I talk to anybody. You know, are you scared?
Yeah. Tom's a good guy.
Listen, I'll talk to anybody. I don't care what news outlet it is. I don't care, what citizen it is, because it's about being transparent in the community, and you can see that with our president. Our president is talking to the press every day, even ones that don't like him too much. I happen to think you like me a lot because you don't report too much negative on me. There's a little bit of negative on me, but hey, you know what? No one can be perfect. But a little bit about my background. I own a couple of businesses. I'm from Hernando County. I've been in office about 8 years, and a short little story to tell you how conservative I am. I never thought about getting into politics. I mean, I really just wanted to be an entrepreneur. I wanted to, open my firearms store and, live happily ever after. I have 5 kids and, just make the best of this, beautiful county, beautiful state and live happily ever after. But
live free and not be bothered, right?
Exactly. And what set me off is in 2015, SunTrust Bank attacked me and shut down my checking account. You remember, you reported on it back then. And I told them, I said, you messed with the wrong guy. I go, you messed with the wrong guy because I'm not gonna accept this, right? So we picketed, we went through all that stuff, and anyway, long story short, I got recruited from the community, and they said, we want you as our commissioner. You have backbone. You're not afraid to challenge the establishment. You're not afraid to challenge, a big company. And I said, well, really? And I looked into that, and the more and more I looked into it, because back in the years ago, I would follow federal politics. I'd follow the president. I'd follow senators and House reps, et cetera. But did I pay enough attention to local politics? Probably not early on. Even though ever since I registered to vote at 19, I've been a Republican the entire time. I've never wavered. I've never voted for a Democrat. I'm the opposite of anything woke. You could trust that. So anyway, long story short, again, I agreed to run, and I filed, believe it or not, on the exact same day Donald Trump did, June 15th, 2015. Wow. I filed the exact same day for almost the same reason. And, they literally call me the Trump of the county because I don't report to anybody but the citizens. When it comes down to it, if I'm the only no vote or the only yes vote, if I believe it's the right thing to do, it's the right thing to do. So that's a little bit about me, today we're going to talk about the body-worn cameras, and we'll talk about a few other issues. But let me just set this straight. I'm a Republican. I'm a conservative. I have no intention of bashing our party because that's not what it's about. It's about really just being transparent and doing the right thing for the citizens. And
but Steve, don't you sometimes find, I don't mean to cut you off there, but don't you sometimes find, Republican or Democrat, there's sometimes, I'm not saying, you don't want to bash the party, but oftentimes the little cliques are formed, and we call them establishments, right? Yeah. And sometimes that's a negative thing, and it is negatively affects the party. You agree with that?
Well, yes and no. I mean, there's some people out there. I'm not saying all. There's some people out there that are just do what they're told. At least it appears that way. I don't know for sure. I mean, I don't talk to them like that. And for according to Sunshine Law, we got to talk about anything that we're going to vote on in person. Now, we'll chit chat here and there about a process or something, but never about anything to vote. So we have to hash it out up on the dais. So it gets a little contentious sometimes when it comes to that stuff. And I think some people are just scared. Some of them just kind of go along with the flow and have to go along with party leadership or certain person. And I'm not going to mention any names unless it's something specific.
I'll mention their names.
Yeah, but I'll mention a name if it's relevant to the topic we're talking about. But overall, I just want them to do what they think is right and do what's right for the citizens. And sometimes what's frustrating is we'll sit there and we'll listen to the citizens and we'll hear what's going on with our president and hear what's going on in the federal government, and we'll turn around and do the exact same thing that the national media or government's doing. And I question them, and I'll bring up some topics later, but I'll question them saying, the people don't want this, or they do want this. Aren't you? You're not listening. You're not in the clique, and maybe it's because of my jobs, and I'm an entrepreneur. I own a firearms store. I'm turning it over to my daughter, my son-in-law here shortly, because I want to focus on this, on the politics side of Hernando County, and possibly even more in the future. We can talk about that later.
Yes.
But maybe they're scared of their business. Maybe they're scared of the backlash. I don't know what it is. But if you get into politics, you've got to do the right thing. You do the right thing, even if it's hard.
Yes, yes. And over those, what was it? How you been in there? 8
years.
8 years. And over those last 8 years, you've proven to be, one of those that doesn't play politics. You speak what's on your mind. You hear something you don't like, you bring it up. Like, I don't like that, and you say it while you're on the dais, like you said.
Exactly.
And that's something. That's what people see more of
Yeah,
that. We need more of that
feathers.
on every board, right?
But that's why I'm sorry to cut you up, but that's
Yeah.
why we voted for Trump.
Yes.
Why is that our president? You know why? Because I don't believe that man is lying, not one word. I think he just speaks what's on his mind. And you know what? Sometimes it's shocking. You're like, Gulf of America? Like, really? Can he do that? And I go, he's going to buy Greenland? Really? And he's going to make Canada a state? And I thought it was a joke at first. And now I'm looking at it going, last night I pulled it up and I go, Canada's only got 41 million people. There's more people in Florida and Georgia combined than all of Canada.
But see, we don't have to like the guy, just as long as he's doing a good job.
I like the guy. I like what he's doing.
A lot of people don't. But whatever, he has his issues, but this guy gets stuff done and it makes sense, and that's what people need. Everything's so crazy out there right now that Trump just does what most normal people would do.
He says what most people think in their minds.
Yes. He's getting it done. And he's probably the first guy that's actually going to pull off what he says he's going to do when he campaigns.
Yes.
You know?
Oh, he's going to get it done.
He's going to get it done. He's going to pull it all
This
off.
wall is going to be built.
Correct.
The stuff's going to happen. We're going to. Elon Musk is going to cut $1 trillion from his budget at least.
Yes.
It's shocking what we're finding. And that's why I brought up the other day where actually, and I know I'm going to be all over the place, and I'm a fast thinker.
We can
fast
do that
talker.
here. We can do that here. No
But
problem.
we brought up, and I brought up the Hernando Doge. I had some business leaders and people that are involved in politics that want to be involved, and I brought it up first. This was my comment on the commissioner comments, and Commissioner Amsler was going to do the same thing, and I figured, hey, he's a rookie. He don't have much on his plate. I got a million things on my plate. I said, you can take it as long as we're doing what we're doing. So Amsler's going to lead that. But ever since that was posted online a little while ago, there's tons of people signing up, and the budget is so big, and this is what you got to think about. Like, so the last time I looked, it was 880 page budget, and that's pages of the budget, right? If you break down every one of those pages, there's probably 1,000 or more pages of expenses per page.
And line by line by line of every item.
So when some of these commissioners say we got to go line by line, I go, well, it would take us 30 years
right.
to do it because there's a million plus
who
pages.
creates all that? Who creates all that?
I mean,
Where's that all coming from?
it's
Everybody?
necessary. It's necessary to break it all down, and a lot of it's legal. Like with enterprise funds, with water, and and DPW for roads. Wherever you collect the revenue from has to be spent there.
Correct.
It can't be spent somewhere else. You can't take water money and go pave roads.
Correct.
So there's rules and stuff, and I agree with that. But at the same time, it's very difficult to audit it all without having a large staff, and that's why Doge is having to go through this stuff. And it's massive. I could just imagine the federal government.
There's plenty of ways to cheat that, right?
Jay, let me give you an example. He made an example of this in the last meeting. He says, what was it, DPW that wanted $77,000 for a new roof?
It was Parks and Rec.
Parks and Rec.
It was a 900 square foot building over at Linda Pedersen Park.
Yeah.
And they came forward, and I don't blame the staff because, there's an underlying issue here, right? So there was only one bid on the roof, and it was a 900-some square foot building, and it needed some rafter work and whatever. And I know about buildings because I do some real estate a little bit here and there. And when he put the bid forward, he said it was $77,000 for a 900 square foot roof. I said, if you replace every single rafter, all the decking, and the roof, it wouldn't be more than $20,000. I go, no wonder we're in trouble.
And they would have let that happen,
because it's
wouldn't
not
they?
their own money.
They would have taken that deal if not caught, right?
No, actually, I'll give it to the commissioners. The other commissioners voted. It's like, no.
Okay.
We're not spending money on that. Okay. So, they're not always wrong. I mean, we disagree with some things, but we agree 80 to 90% of the time. But to me, when you disagree on the big stuff, like $1 billion budget, or you disagree on a regulation, like, for example, when some of the commissioners took the rights away of legal ATV riders that are allowed to drive on dirt roads, to me, that was an overstretch of government. Who are you to take my freedoms away?
Right.
Absolutely unacceptable.
Jay, you missed that. That was a big ordeal last year. It was unbelievable. They couldn't even ride on the roads, and the state law says they can.
They can't.
On off roads.
30 and under.
Yep.
Yep.
Four wheelers, off ATVs, and then they made it illegal in the county, and Steve challenged it.
And that was led by John Alaco. I'll expose and I'll say names with it, but he's the one that led it. The sheriff implemented it. They got the votes, but then the outcry of society, they were forced to take it down. Yeah. They were forced to get rid of it.
What was the reason behind that? Safety?
Supposedly, but really it's about politics. You know what it's about? I don't want any complaints. Do you hear Elon Musk the other day saying we approve the payments because we don't want to complain. Even if they're fraudulent, we can prove it. And
that was a great video. Did you see that with Musk and Trump, and he had his child on his head?
Yeah. But some of that
was classic.
Some of that happens locally too, because guess what? And myself included, I don't make decisions like that, but I don't like complaints.
Right.
I mean, when you have a room full of people that are upset with something, I'm starting to look at it. I was like, wow, there's a lot of people that don't like this. I'll probably want to pay attention.
Yeah.
So numbers do make a difference when the citizens speak up, because if we have nobody there and no one really cares, then at that point we still weigh it. I still make a decision if I still don't think it's right for the citizens, because a lot of people are working. They don't have the time to go through a whole agenda and look at every detail.
Yeah.
So I mean, that doesn't mean I would just rubber stamp it, because I would never do that.
No. And we're going to come back to rubber stamping a little later, but. So now I want to talk about an incident that occurred in Brooksville a little over a week ago, involving a deputy-involved shooting in Brooksville and the death of a 62-year-old man after an incident involving the deputy there on Martin Luther King Boulevard. Now, it's easy to make a judgment. A lot of people say, "Oh, it's the deputy." People, anti-law enforcement people are very, they always rush to judgment and say it's the deputy's fault. Racism, all these different things. And no, we're not here to do that. We're going to talk about what element is missing that would help to prove things, prove what's true, what the facts are, without a doubt. And Steve, so regarding body cameras, I know you're a proponent of body cameras. Give me your feelings on that. I know you, like I said, you for the last few years, you've really been pushing it, and it seems like everyone's just kind of keeping their mouth shut about it. What do you think?
Well, I'm going to start off in preference. Like you said, we all support law enforcement. I 100% support the men and women. We're going to talk about this topic, and I'm going to talk about some of the challenges. But it really has to do with politics. It really has nothing to do with the men and women out there. If anything, what we're going to talk about is about protecting them, and that's why I'm so passionate about it. So, so I'll get right into why do I support body cameras, and why do I feel that the sheriff doesn't. And I'll tell you that too. What my opinion is. That doesn't mean it's a fact. I mean, he'll tell you something different. And of course, bring him on and talk to him because
he's invited. He's invited to come on anytime he wants to.
Yeah, I like to see what the interview is with you guys. I don't know. Regarding body-worn cameras, right? And I have a lot of friends that work for FHP. I have friends that work for Pasco. They have body-worn cameras. I in my business where I sell firearms, over 50% of my business is law enforcement. Either retired law enforcement, current law enforcement, et cetera. So we have one-on-one conversations. And, of course, they would never go on the record and say they're against what their boss is about. I mean, it's not very smart to go against your boss in public, when you work for them. But the general consensus of the people I speak to are want the body cameras because they want protection. Because you see what's going on in the world right now where some of these criminals accuse law enforcement of everything under the sun, or being racist or targeting them, et cetera. And we know that criminals, they're the loudest usually. They're the ones that are the loudest and they're trying to get out of their crime, et cetera. But this specific incident, what really bothers me is, and I'm sure the sheriff's investigating, I'm sure he's got some evidence, maybe even cameras from the homes that were over there. Who knows? We don't know. And that's the problem. We don't know. And what I have a problem with is this deputy is a young deputy. I don't know them. I've never met them before. I don't. Not that I know of, at least. He's 21 years old. He's a little green. I had a lot of questions. Why are you chasing this guy that was a passenger in the car? That, from what I'm told, he's a 62-year-old man. I heard he was unarmed. I don't know that for a fact. And like you mentioned in the beginning, if we had a body-worn camera, this deputy would not be getting defamed like he is. Right. You know what I mean?
Or if he was wrong, then we would know he's wrong. If he was right, then he's right.
If he was wrong, then of course the sheriff would and our FDLE would do what they have to do. And I'm not saying that by no means, especially considering the record of the person that was shot. Mm-hmm. But no matter what their criminal record is, no matter what's going on, there's still a free person that deserves due process. Correct. And so we have to remember that. Even though they're tainted by the felonies or convictions or whatever. So if we had the body-worn camera, we would know. That's number one. Number two, I tell people all the time, if there was a deputy, I'm not saying there's any in our county, but I have seen YouTube videos around the country where there is bad cops, right? If there is, you ever heard of the saying, if the lock keeps the honest people honest, right? So when I lock a gate, is it really keeping the criminal out? or is it keeping an honest person honest? The honest person is going to go, well, it says no trespassing. You have a lock. So I'm not breaking the law because I don't do that. I don't break the law. I'm not gonna cut the lock, and I'm not gonna jump the fence, right? But the criminal doesn't care about your lock. They don't care about your laws.
Yeah,
they don't care about your regulations. They're a criminal by definition. So they're gonna challenge the system, and they're just gonna do what they have to do until there's a penalty. You know. So when you interact with somebody, and I stop you, Tom, and I'm a deputy, I'm detaining you. I've stopped your free movement of travel.
Your freedom has been stopped. Yes.
We stopped your travel. We show up at your house. We're at a call. We're at an accident. Whatever it is, I've detained you.
There still has to be probable cause for you to do that. There has to be a reason for you.
Exactly,
to do that.
And that should be recorded, right?
It has to be recorded.
Correct,
And when I speak to FHP, they have no problem with that because they're detaining that person. So right when that car was pulled over, before that gentleman, the 62-year-old victim, I don't know what you call him, whatever, the person that was shot.
Well, victim / suspect. We don't know yet.
Whatever, yeah.
We don't know.
The person that got out and started running. What is the circumstance that led up to that? Right. And maybe that's on the car. It probably is. They probably do have that video of the car, so they probably will have that.
Yes.
Well, why wouldn't they mention that?
I don't know.
That's
I don't, and I'm not going to speculate on anything. I'm just going to tell you what my opinion is, and I tell you what we're talking about regulation, we're talking about money, and we're talking about funding, and we'll get into all that on how the commission affects that, right?
Yeah, I know. We definitely want to talk about it because, and I'm not trying to cut you off real quick, but I definitely want to talk about the point where you had this conversations back and forth with your other commissioners, your fellow commissioners, that were like, well, they say we have no power to make you do anything, and you're like, well, we have the power of the purse.
Correct. And I'll get into that in a second. But I'm going to finish my topic. So basically, these body-worn cameras, like for example, if we had it, we would know what would happen. We'd be able to clear the deputy right away because I'm going to assume the deputy was right. We'd be able to clear the deputy, and yet we'd be able to hand the prosecutor a file saying it's a done deal. They interview who they got to interview. I know that they can take it very serious when someone was killed. FDLE, I believe they do. I believe they do a great job. I believe our governor's doing a great job. I believe all the law enforcement in the state is doing a great job. So they'd be able to clear that person right away. But there's bigger picture to all this. So like, let's say you're pulled over for DUI. And we only have the car camera, and we get up in the interaction, and was there probable cause? Did you smell of alcohol? Did you slur? Were you stumbling? And if you got out of the car and you're falling all over the place, you're not going to plead not guilty.
No, yes.
You're gonna get with the prosecutor and go, I need a deal.
They got me.
And if you talk to prosecutors, they'll tell you that it's 90+% conviction rate. So not only do we save the reputation of our deputies and we protect them and the citizens, we also save money.
Yeah. You move that process forward.
I'm a conservative. I don't want to tie up all the money in the courts. I don't want to tie up all our prosecutors and our attorneys. And not to mention, if someone is innocent on that, why should they pay thousands of dollars in legal fees? Because the camera would have proved you're innocent, and therefore the prosecutors would say, "Nope, we're not."
Make a deal right now, get it over with. Don't drag it out.
So it protects everyone. Yeah. And you know what? You do not have a right to privacy. If you're being detained, it should be on public record. A law enforcement officer had probable cause to stop you and to stop my travel or my movement or my free will, then it should be recorded.
Yes.
So that's why I'm so passionate about it. Now we get into the funding and what you talked about at the commission meeting.
Yeah, let me.
It's not a financial issue because you control the money.
Well, watch this, Jay. Watch this because
they can't say that we can't afford this because you're saying you'll pay for it.
Right? Jay, watch this because we're going to go over that background a little bit of how the funding has been an issue, at least for the sheriff. All right, so let me kind of give a little foundation. For years, like I said, several years, people have been calling for it. Everyone knows. The whole county, at least 80% of them, want these body cameras implemented in the sheriff's office. Okay. Like every county wants them. Look at Pasco County; they're doing a great job. But the sheriff says when he comes in, he's confronted. Well, he says, Sheriff Al Nienhuis says, "We can't afford it.
Yeah, that's
we can't afford that. Yeah. So, and yet he gets 8 to 10 to 12% increases every year in his budget. And I'm just going to be rubber stamping right now, but we'll talk about that later. And then says he. We need to spend that money on boots on the ground, right? Mm-hmm. So, okay, well, where are those boots? It doesn't seem like the money goes to that, So, it's.
So I'll explain about the budget if you want to hear.
Yeah. Let's go right into that.
I'm going to start 8 years ago when I got on the commission, right? So I got elected 2016. I start right at the end of 2016, going into 2017. You remember that year? Mm-hmm. The commission gave the sheriff zero, gave nothing. But in turn gave the county an increase. Now, granted, that was tough times and the budget was really tight. It's always tough times. But when I got in, I go, you cannot give the county an increase and not give the sheriff. So I supported the sheriff, and I went after it, and I got his $1.7 million. You can look back at the tapes. I led the charge on that right from day one, right? Because it just wasn't fair, and he was suing us and going to the governor, et cetera. Whatever. That's long story short. So going after that, then I started seeing what was going on here, because every year it was this large increase. And the problem I had in the beginning was not that we didn't need it for law enforcement. I mean, every single department head can justify why they need more money. Just like in the federal government, what Trump's dealing with now, they all are screaming and whatever that we need this, right? When the downturn happened in Hernando County, 2008, 2009, right in that area, the government almost overnight shrank 50%. We're still here.
Yeah,
it didn't go away. We didn't. It wasn't all doom and gloom, So when these department heads come forward, my job as a commissioner and the whole commission is to analyze and to look out for the people. And I told them it has nothing personal to do with the sheriff. It has nothing personal to do with the other commissioners. It has to do with doing the right thing. They put me there because I ran on low taxes, small government, less regulation. Every single one of my votes, I challenge anyone to find something that I'm not that, because I am that, right? So that doesn't mean I don't support law enforcement. Do they need to increase most years, especially with inflation? Of course they do. But when you look at the budget, and our budget included, not just because of growth and what's going on, we're 120% more than what we were in 2016. Right? We've only grown 12% as a population. Even if you put a 25%, CPI or inflation, it's not 120%. So there is too much spending in Hernando County. So when the sheriff comes forward like last year with a 12% increase with $8 million, and that's the third year in a row with a double-digit increase with zero compromise, no compromise,
and
not a dollar.
Listen, and that 1% sales tax,
Yeah.
The failure of that was a referendum on what how the people felt about that, and that was the best way you can prove something. So it's like,
I put law enforcement on there, by the way. I'm the one that asked for it. I said, let the people decide. We need a new jail. Let them decide. We need a new police, our deputy sheriff's headquarters. Let them decide. And they decided. And I was for it, because I think a flat tax and a sales tax.
Yeah,
I'd much rather tourists be paying these taxes than our citizens.
But Steve, it wasn't that it was a bad thing. Yeah. It was that the people didn't like what the money was going to be spent on, especially $300 to $350 million to redo the entire. I think that was probably the biggest factor. Their entire sheriff's office, build new facilities, carports, everything. They just didn't think we didn't need it. And so I think that was one of the factors that actually led to the failure of that.
It's possible, but I look at it as a mandate. When the citizens vote, just like years ago, they voted for medical marijuana. I remember a commissioner is no longer with us now, was advocating to ban all dispensaries.
Yeah.
I go, absolutely. I don't agree with it per se, but I'm not going to go ban what this people just voted for at a 70% rate. I'm not going to do that. Even though I may disagree with it, I'm not going to go ban their access to it.
Right.
Can I just crime rates? Crime rates have any effect on the budget?
I mean, obviously there's
like each year.
If we didn't have crime and people behaving badly, we wouldn't need to have government. You know what I mean? We talk about that all the time. I mean, crime rates supposedly are down. I don't know if they are.
If the crime rates are down. Yeah. Could you tell me we don't need that much money?
Well, I mean, I think in general we don't need that much money.
Now you're referring to
budget.
Sheriff's budget or the overall budget?
If crime rates are going up each year, they're saying, "Hey, we need obviously a lot more money this year."
You're talking about the sheriff's budget, or are you talking about the general fund? Okay,
the sheriff's budget.
Okay,
if crime rates rise, you could. We need a lot more money.
The bottom line is here: every year we cut the millage rate, which is the rate of tax rate, to 5 years in a row. But it's not enough, because the growth and the property values have outpaced that. So we pat ourselves on the back. I'm going to say ourselves because it's the whole commission. Yeah. We pat ourselves on the back. Oh, we lowered the millage 5 years in a row. You're still increasing taxes. Don't sit there and say you don't increase taxes. Every year, if you don't do rollback rate, which means keep the taxes the same, you are increasing taxes. I don't care what you say, you are. Yeah. And I voted for some of those too. Sometimes it's necessary. I don't vote for a tax rate increase, but if inflation is 25% and you have growth, you're going to have something. But it's out of control right now. So and that's besides the point on this thing. Yeah. It's not even the point on these body cameras, because the money is there.
Yes.
The money's there. We can pay for it.
What was it you said about the? You even mentioned this in the last BOCC meeting, where you said, "Listen, we need to give him the money. Let's take it out of the reserves." Yeah. And listen, it's not you.
That was
do
a
that.
couple years ago. That was a while ago.
You could do it though, and there's ways to make it happen. And the other factor is, and I've brought this up to the sheriff for the last year, is that there are federal grants available. You just apply for them. $2 million. He says he doesn't have the money to do it. But that's honestly not true.
If you look back at the tape, he never said, he said it's more than just the cameras. He said, yeah, we can get the cameras. We can implement them. We can do it. It's the people behind the scenes, public records requests, et cetera. And I understand that. And especially at first, a lot of people would be asking for this stuff, et cetera. And, until you get your feet wet and you get it organized and you get the logistics worked out, then of course you're going to have some of those growing pains. But what I would do if I was sheriff is I'd go down to see NACO, or I would go to FHP, and I'd go to another agency and say, hey, show me how this thing works.
Yeah.
I mean, he comes from Pinellas anyway. So go down to Pinellas, go down to Pasco, go talk to them. Go find out what they're doing.
What about flock cameras?
Well, the flock cameras are unacceptable. And I've said this before, because they're spying on people without a warrant. So when an officer stops you, he has probable cause. He or she has probable cause. They have a right to stop you legally. But when there's a camera on the side of the road, a Chinese camera, because they are all made in China pretty much, and they're tracking the plates. It's like pre-crime. You ever seen the movie? It's like, let me catch somebody before. You didn't catch them in a crime, but you're going to get. That's why the red light cameras are unconstitutional.
Plate readers that are on these cars sometimes. I see police that have the plate readers. They're reading every single plate.
Yeah, well, they have these. I don't know if you're aware, Jay. They have these cameras set up all over Hernando County. There's little cameras that. It's through this company called Flock, and they do they record data of every vehicle, and if a vehicle has, if they're looking for someone, or if they flag someone, they can record that. But here's the problem, and Steve has brought this up.
What's the probable cause?
A lot of the parts that are in that Flock camera are Chinese made.
Yeah. Well, there's a bigger issue though. That if you go to Flock.com, if you go to Flock cameras right now, and they're all over Facebook advertising, they're advertising to put them into HOAs and a private use, and they'll sell the data, or they'll tell you if somebody report to law enforcement what's going on. So who is controlling this data? What I'm concerned with is not necessarily that if you had a warrant. Let's say you had the camera on the side of the road, and I'm looking for Tom Lemons, and he's wanted, and I know he lives in that neighborhood, and we can simply look for, because we have a subpoena or something to look for you, and I'm confident that nobody can get that data. Maybe it would be okay. But I'm not confident, especially what I see in the federal government. I'm not confident that information is not being spread. I'm not confident that somebody doesn't like Steve Champion and says, put in his plate number. I want to see what he's doing all day.
Yeah, track you.
Because they don't have to tell you.
You should be concerned if that's happening. Everyone should be concerned. And you know what? Here's the thing. We could get rid of them right now with 3 votes on the commission, but Commissioner Amsler is the only one with me. So it's a 3-2 vote to keep them. So if the other 3 commissioners at any time would say we want them off our right of way because we control the right of way, we could simply force them to remove them with 3 votes.
That's interesting. You know what? It might be interesting just to see it happen. Put the vote, put a motion out there.
Already did. They already failed it.
Wow.
They already voted against it. So, and I brought it up. I bring it up almost every meeting, and I'm going to keep bringing it up. And after this video, there's gonna be a lot of people that aren't crazy about it. And our Senator Ngolia, he just introduced some legislation about. And it's great stuff about there's new AI technology that scans people whether they're carrying a firearm, and he put and this is where this technology is going, and this is concerning, right?
Wait, they can see you and they can tell you have a firearm?
They can tell if they scan you and I X-ray you or something like that and tell if you have a firearm on. Now he's got legislation out there to ban that. Well, everyone on his page, if you go to it, they're all going, what are you going to do about flock cameras? What are you going to do about flock cameras? What are you going to do about flock cameras? So I urge our legislation to do something about it. And, going a step further, I urge Ron DeSantis, our governor, and I think highly of him. I think we need to give this podcast to him. Make it mandatory for body cameras. Make it mandatory. And,
Absolutely.
And state pay for it. The state can pay for it. We have billions of dollars in reserves. Pay for them. Help the law enforcement. Get it done.
Man, that's about the best.
Old school, new school. Sometimes with these guys, how long has Niehaus been in law enforcement?
Let's see. Well, he's been with Hernando since 2011. He's appointed by Democrat.
How long?
He's appointed by Charlie Crist. Yeah.
Charlie Crist, yeah.
Yep.
He's probably not used to any of that stuff. These old
no,
school.
Well, it's more devious than that. It's more devious. It's more political. It's more political than even not understanding it. He doesn't want that, in my opinion. Again, it's my show. I can have my opinion. He doesn't want them because, again, political reason. I'll go deeper into the political reason. Political because if someone screws up on the street, he doesn't want that. He doesn't want any bad.
Yeah, but we want to protect his officers as well.
Well, that's half the issue. Half the issue is protect the officer. Half the issue is to protect the citizens. And body cameras do exactly that.
Well, for a fact. That's what I know. I mean, you know what? And I know I'm speaking out of both sides of my mouth. A lot of people say, well, you're against flock cameras, but you want body cameras. Well, again, I'll repeat. You're stopping the free flow of a free person. You're stopping me in my car. You're stopping me on the street. You're detaining me.
Yes.
I have a right to be protected.
And that's legal.
And the deputy has a right to be protected. Like, let's say I'm spouting off to him and I'm saying, you're a racist, you're this, you're that, or whatever, or I'm just being uncooperative. The officer should be protected. If there's a legal reason to stop me, they have every right to stop me. So, but I have a right to be protected. And,
Yes.
and guess what? The officer, probably most of the time, is correct. I think we all agree with that.
Absolutely.
80 plus, 90 plus percent of the time. I probably think 99% of the time the deputy is
Yes.
acting in good faith.
But the fact that Sheriff Nienhuis and some of your fellow commissioners say that our deputies never do anything. Come on.
an
Now, listen,
absolute
we've already
statement.
had.
Never say never.
I've done stories on deputies who've been arrested in Hernando County for theft, stealing money out of funds. I mean, it's just over and over. Listen, you can't say
Never.
that law enforcement officers are perfect people. No.
Yeah.
They will they'll make mistakes, even just unintentional mistakes. So what makes them
They have to be accountable.
more accountable?
Correct.
And keep them straight.
What I told you in the beginning, I
Body
said
cameras.
that I told you that it keeps honest people honest.
Honest people
Because
honest.
guess what? The deputies are generally 100%. We hire them honest people.
Yes.
At least the sheriff and everybody else would never hire them if
they
they
have
weren't.
good vetting. Right.
They go through strict background checks. I mean, even more rigorous than any other person.
Right.
So odds are they're a good person.
Right.
But if there's not checks and balances of anything in government, then there's fraud and there's things that happen. You're seeing it.
Yeah.
In the federal government. That doesn't mean we're immune to it. And you know what? You may put these body cameras on and it's absolutely perfect. But remember, you're also helping the courts.
Yeah.
You're also helping the citizens. And you know what? And that citizen, if they are innocent, let's say they make an honest mistake. And you know what? I wasn't guilty of something. Or they ran the tag wrong and they come to find out, well, he didn't do anything wrong. And they look at the video and they say, the prosecutor's like, nope, we're not prosecuting that person. Now you save me thousands of dollars from having to hire a lawyer and all the other stuff.
That officer may not arrest that person just because they don't like him. You know what I'm saying? If you're on body cam,
Well,
like,
yeah,
I don't
like I
this
said,
guy, whatever.
like he said,
But if
keeps
he's
the
not doing
honest
a
person
crime,
honest. Yeah, keeps
if you don't
honest.
like the guy, you can't do
But
it.
what his point is that in the courts,
Correct, it saves money.
It's so much money these courts spend having all these defendants come in here running these courses for years at a time. It could have been done with
Most of these
in a month
people
or two.
probably aren't real criminals. They're not bad people
Well,
too around here. Most of them that are arrested, they're
Well,
just got
look,
caught in a bad
whether you're guilty
situation.
or not, the body camera will prove that.
I mean, it's pretty simple. To me, it's just a no-brainer.
Yeah.
It's a no-brainer, and it needs to happen. And and I want transparency.
Yeah.
In the government, period, on any position.
Right.
And
Work for us.
Yeah, I mean, just like when we get up there in the dais and all of us are hashing it out, and sometimes we're all Republicans, but we disagree on some things, including this. Where
vehemently. I've seen some really good sparring going on.
I mean, if you watch the video from our last commission meeting, I mean, we
I saw
talked about
that.
it for like a half hour. And and I'm passionate about. I listen. When you start going after our citizens' freedom, and you tax them to death, and you overregulate them, you're going to see a different side of Steve Champion. Because I tell you straight up, I am not going to give up. I don't give up on any of this stuff. I'll keep talking about it. I'll keep pushing it.
Yeah.
And in fact, even possibly run for office if I need to change it.
Really?
Well, you know what? We're going to get to that in just a few minutes. So, Steve, I'm going to kind of pressure you on something right now. And look, you're not the kind of guy who holds back too much, and so I want to push you a little more on the relationship between the three commissioners who I believe. Again, this is my opinion. I think the opinion of a lot of people in Hernando County that there are three commissioners who are kind of a squad, we'll call it. That they kind of vote the same way.
Gang.
Yeah, a little kind of a establishment. But they mentioned something, and you mentioned it a couple of times during the last meeting about the issue of why body cameras aren't being implemented is a political reason. And I'm going to push you a little more on that and ask you, and I think one of the commissioners asked you, why? Give me a little more reason why you think it's political.
Well, you mentioned it earlier a little bit. I think it's self-preservation by the sheriff on some of it, where you don't know. There's a lot of young people make mistakes. I mean, did you make mistakes when you were young? I did. I mean, we all do.
We're old people,
and we have a lot of young deputies. So I think there's that fear. I think, and I'm speculating. I don't know that for a fact. But why else would you be against it? I don't know. So on the sheriff's side, I think it's some of that, and some of it is like it's a lot of work. I mean, when you do that, and with public records, I mean, I could see why you would want to leave status quo, but with the technology and stuff the way it is now, you have no choice. You have to adapt, and you have to go forward with it. I mean, we could all say that these things have ruined our lives. Cell phones. I remember back in the late 80s, early 90s, when there was no phones, we had a lot more freedom.
I had a pager.
But it is what it is, and these tools help fight crime. You know what I mean? So they do, but we can't let them go too far. You know, like with the spy cameras and stuff. Now, on the flip side, as far as the motivations behind the other three commissioners, I can't tell you why they do what they do. I just know that they don't vote right. And the reason my opinion is that way is from the people. And and I don't know if enough people pay attention, but I damn sure plan on making sure they know.
You've always done that.
They're going to know. And with this new election comes up in 26, unfortunately, I'm going to have to support the most conservative commissioner candidates that coming forward, and I need help. And Ryan Amsler needs help. I mean, he's only been a few months in position. You know, I haven't agreed with everything that he's voted on. I mean, we've disagreed on a few things, but overall, he's been very positive. And and on that note, giving some politicians some perks and saying hey, they're doing a good job. You know, our Mayor Blake Bell, he used to be the mayor of Brooksville before he just resigned or retired. Nice guy, did a great job. What a partner, and what a common sense guy. And he is the REC chair, for Hernando County, and so there's a lot of positive politicians. Blaze, I might not agree with everything he's about, but again, he votes right.
Yeah,
he votes right, and I can't tell you the time I disagreed with a vote that he had in Tallahassee.
Yeah,
so it doesn't matter about personality. It doesn't matter whether I like the sheriff or not. Yeah. It doesn't matter whether I like the commissioners or not. We don't go home and sit down and chit chat and have drinks together.
Yeah,
I mean, they're not my buddies. I mean, we have a job to do. That's what we're there to do. So I can't tell you what their motivations are. I could speculate that maybe it's for political reasons and maybe it's because of relationships they have. I can tell you that, I vote against my friends on there. I've had friends come up to me and I voted against them.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to vote what I think is right. And, and I'm going to use my life experiences to do the right thing.
It's funny, Steve. Yes. And I don't know why they do this because it's kind of ridiculous, but some of the commissioners have insinuated Steve and I are like great buddies and we hang out and it's like that's why I always have him on and do stories, great stories. Yeah. No, he does. Look, I'm a conservative like he is. I'm a common sense minded. And when I report,
values are the same.
Right, the values. And so when he does the right thing, I report on it.
And you haven't always given a positive story on me. I mean, I voted on stuff that you disagree with in the past, and you voted. I mean, I think early on when the sheriff's budget stuff, you disagreed with some of that stuff. I don't remember what the specifics were, but it was never, I don't know, disrespectful.
Yeah.
And I think you gave me an opportunity to talk to you.
Absolutely.
And that's all you should do. And and I encourage you to give the sheriff and these other commissioners an opportunity.
Right. And that is exactly what I was going to say. They are invited to come on. All the commissioners will always have an open invite to come on and talk about these issues, any issue. And, the problem is, though, Steve, it seems like when I began telling the truth again. I came back in 22 with the rnews.news website and began doing the same thing, which I'm a truth guy. I'm a First Amendment truth guy. And when I see something that's, when I think it's wrong, I'm not going to voice my opinion, but I'm going to tell it to the people, and they can decide whether it's wrong, and common sense tell you whether it's wrong. Yeah. And they don't like that, and then suddenly they don't want to talk to me anymore. And, it's just, this guy talks to me whether I
oh, that's good.
Any reason.
Well, I think you're fair when you report. If you're fair when you're reporting and you
honesty.
Factually say what I said, I stand behind my votes. I stand behind what I said. You can simply take my words off the video and post it. For all I care, I don't care. It's public knowledge. They can all look at the meetings. The public can go right now to hernandocounty.gov and look at every video for the last 7 years and see it. And you can look at the recap. You can look at the minutes. Find out how I vote. I challenge you to look at my votes.
Yeah.
My votes, I'll stand behind them.
Stand behind them.
I guarantee you, they're embarrassed of some of their votes because they don't literally. I mean, we have our meetings and stuff with the Republican Party. You don't hear them touting that they gave away property or they increased taxes or put more regulation on people. They don't talk about that. I mean, I think if you're transparent, you tell them why.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they do. I mean, I don't know what they say to the constituents. Maybe they do. Maybe they do have
one of the things that comes to mind real quick, and again, I'm not just trying to bash John Alacco. It just popped in my mind, a recent from the last election during a campaign event in Hernando Beach. He was getting some pressure because he decided to run again after saying, I'm going to be a 2-term commissioner and I'm done. And then he decided to come back again. And people were like, "What? You said you promised not to do more than 2 terms." And when he came into that event, he's like, "They said, why did you do this? Why did you change your mind?" They called him a liar, And he's like, I just changed my mind, and that just doesn't fly with people. That's the kind of political stuff that people don't like. And I'm not just attacking Alaco. I'm seeing a lot of politicians do that. And so it just reminds me of how, like I said, some of them only care about politics, and there's others that care about the people that they represent. And I think Steve's one of those guys.
Appreciate
so
it.
listen, I want you to, you were going to ask Steve a question.
No, I don't know why he doesn't run for sheriff.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a stretch. And it's crazy.
Then you could put that stuff in there.
It's crazy you're asking about that
No, I'm
because
serious.
there's a coalition out there. There's people out there that are asking me to do it. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about 4 years away. And primarily, my job is a commissioner. That's what I'm going to focus on right now the next few years. And I'm not going to say I'm not going to run again. I don't really intend to. I mean, because I really want to run for Congress is what my plan was. But I won't rule out running for sheriff. I tell you, because if we still have the same issues we have, you do not have to be law enforcement to be sheriff. You're a policy. You execute policy. You execute the law. I'm not a stupid guy. I'm smart. I'm a conservative. I'm pro law enforcement. I could definitely do it. Do I want to do it? That's a long time away.
Right.
You know what I mean? And who knows?
Right.
But I'm not going to accept the status quo and what's going on here. I'm not going to accept the takeover of our county because I don't know if you know recently, the sheriff came in and again, it was me and Amsler that voted against it. The other three voted for it. The hostile takeover of the animal services. And you know what? Let's be transparent about this. He talked about he's going to save us money, et cetera. Well, he goes in. James Terry used to be his major. There's a whole other story on that. I don't know if you want to touch on that, but it looked political to me, and I was all in the open. And why would anybody want that? I mean, it's one of those things where there's some decisions that have to be made with some animals that are sick or some animals that are vicious. And I'm an animal lover, and I definitely wouldn't want to be in that situation where I have to put them down. But you gotta ask, like, when there's so much crime, there's so much fentanyl, and so many drugs, and so many other issues, why would the sheriff want that? Right. And then the first couple decisions he makes, obviously he wasn't going to keep James Terry. We wouldn't have promoted him and put him in code enforcement. He's doing a great job so far.
Right.
And he went and took his public information officer and pays her over $100,000 a year to run animal services. And he didn't. She's never had any experience at it. Like what is
sense.
that?
Yeah.
Look, let me
make sense. A lot of stuff doesn't make sense.
Let me get a little, because you touched on a couple things. I want to give a little foundation on those few top topics. Number one, Denise Maloney. She used to be the public information officer for several years. No journalism experience, number one. No. Probably the highest paid public information officer in the state. Maybe, on the higher echelon of PIOs in the country.
Why do you think that is?
Gate guard.
Yeah. Okay,
Gate guard. Okay.
Okay, good point.
Now that's one issue. Okay. And then what do they do when they do the hostile takeover of the animal shelter? She becomes director of the animal shelter and keeps that $106,000 salary per year plus all the benefits. So that is, and when you look at the animal shelter pay salaries for across the state, highest.
Yes.
Highest one. Miami's $76,000 for the Miami's animal shelter director.
I think it's all. I think a lot of it's politics. I think it's all about getting in front of the camera. Look at me, I'm saving a puppy, kind of thing. It just makes me sick.
Yeah,
I don't like.
that's nice.
I don't think
they
anything
really
to do with it.
Yeah.
Kind of like that had some people and even some other commissioners out there doing photo ops at the sheriff during a storm. I don't do that. I donate more to charity. I would
help the people.
I would challenge them because I donate to every kid that comes in and asks me for anything. I've donated to families in need, people that lost, but I never gloat about it because the Bible tells you not to.
Yes.
They don't tell you to. You don't sit there
Balance.
and ask for praise when you help somebody. If it's charity and you want to help somebody, you help them. You do it because it's the right thing to do because God. That's what God wanted from you.
Right.
That's what's written in the Bible.
Be humble.
It's karma. It's a balance.
So I didn't publicize all that. I helped lots of families at Ridge Manor. I helped people in on the Hernando Beach. I mean, there's, but I'm not going to sit there and I'm not going to justify myself and say, oh, let me show you what I did for people. That's just BS. I'm not doing that.
No, that is what you see with a lot of the politicians in Hernando County.
That's
And again,
so fake,
Steve's
though.
not that guy.
No, I agree.
So let me move on a little bit. Okay, so back on the issue of running for office.
Yep.
So you were thinking possibly Congress, representative.
That's the plan right now.
Okay.
That's the plan because I want to make a difference.
Yeah.
In DC, but it's gonna be hard with 400 and something. I don't know.
36, I think, something like that. Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about a large number. They kind of go party line.
But you would be one of those voices that would be people would listen to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And of course you've got like a generational thing. I mean, I don't have a problem with Bill Arrakis. I mean, he's been good to me. I don't know what he's really known for, to tell you the truth. I mean, and he's going to retire one day, but this is not like a family legacy thing where you just keep passing it on. You know, and we also represent Hernando County, and he's new to Hernando County, so there's got to be a choice for the people out there, and then, I think I'd have a good chance at it.
So you also mentioned that you need, if you decide not to run for Congress and you decide to stay in Hernando because they need you, which listen, we've only got 2 votes right now that run the way that is what everybody wants. You're calling for people to really think about this over the next couple of years. Think about running. They're really good, strong conservatives that people can trust. And if you can find a person, we can find a person that the people can get behind. Then you would get behind them and maybe move on to Congress.
There's people coming.
Yeah, or you'll stay in there if you can't.
There's people coming, and I don't know if Blake Bell would ever do this. I mentioned him earlier. How highly I think of him. He used to be the mayor of Brooksville. He lives in my district. Could be a possibility. I respect him. I think he would do a great job. He's a leader of the party. So I'm not anti-establishment altogether. I mean, if you're doing the right thing and you're Republican and conservative, I have no problem.
Right
now, the other side is crazy. I was going to say something else, but they are nuts, right? So if you got a D by your name and you're a liberal, there's this. I just have no patience. They don't like me very much either, by the way. Liberals do not like me very much. But
well, I think they're kind of in the toilet right now, anyways, right? So
we're moving on.
All right. So, I think the people deserve a good representative. You've proven to be a good representative in Hernando County.
That's right.
And if it proves that you need to go further up the ladder and help the American people, then that's the next step. And I hope whatever you do, I trust that you're going to choose the right job.
Yeah. And right now I'm still focused on county commission. I just got reelected. Thank you for the people, by the way, that elected me back in, reelected me at a 70% margin. I mean, a huge margin.
That was the biggest margin of any race.
Of any race, yeah, almost a 40% win, and that's with some establishment working against me. And I tell you, that just shows you that people aren't stupid.
They're behind you.
They're not stupid, and they appreciate someone that speaks clearly about and you don't have to always agree with me, but at least I don't always agree with Trump. I agree with 99%. I mean 99.9%. But I appreciate him speaking clearly, and then saying it how it is. It's time to stop being politically correct and do the right thing for the people.
Absolutely. I think everybody agrees with that message.
Trump's a true leader.
Yeah.
He's a leader. That's what we need.
A lot of people hate him.
He's a leader.
But they hate him because he's right. All right. So I want to go into some other stuff here. Listen, I want to say thank you to Steve Champion, Commissioner Steve Champion, for everything he's done for the county up there, number one.
Appreciate you.
Him and I are really great friends. We hang out every day, is what they say.
We don't hang out at all, by the way. Don't respect that rumor.
But no, seriously, though. It was great having you. I hope you come back. I'd love to have him come back periodically, and just talk about issues that's happened throughout the month.
I'll give you a recap of what's going on in the commission. That way, the people get to see. If they tune into your podcast, they'll be able to hear the bullet points from the previous month or quarter, whatever. As long as we got time available, we'll make it work.
That would be great. I want to thank our sponsor, Tri-Peak Roofing, your roofing contractor in Hernando County. We'll see you guys next week on Get Real.